This podcast is for the daydreamers who like imagining new lives and new beginnings, but don't quite know where to start. Hi, it's Julian from Rappler, and you're listening to Teach Me Senpai. Here we bring in individuals who have created amazing and inspiring work in their own fields. They'll give us some notes and pointers on how they got started, what made them keep at it, what it takes for others to do the same, and life hacks that we can equip ourselves with if we want to pursue something similar. This is episode 2. Today's guest is a digital media manager who uses her powers to help save the environment. Her name is Arvin Alvarez, and she works with a global movement called Break Free from Plastic. Break Free from Plastic is made up of 12,000 organizations and individual supporters, all fighting plastic pollution. This movement wants a world where reusable is made more possible. So, hi Arvin.
Hi.
This is finally happening.
I know.
So just for context, I actually used to work for Break Free from Plastic with Arvin right before I joined Rappler, and this is the first time
ever
that we're actually seeing each other face to face. So this is like a little like a weird experience because we've known each other.
It's so familiar, but also like different realm. I can like reach out.
You're behind on screen.
Yeah,
and like you have legs,
and you're tall.
So I've described Break Free from Plastic like in my own words, but maybe you could also describe it. Like, how would you describe the movement? And I'm sure like the movement has changed so much since I was with you guys.
Yeah, so Break Free from Plastic is, as you said, the movement. So that means that we work with different organizations. So we're not just one organization, but we coordinate with organizations around the world. Hard to believe, but yeah, around the world, working towards making sure that we don't trash the planet, basically, and pushing for real solutions. So what this looks like is, for example, solutions or reuse solutions in a different part of the world looks different than the other parts of the world. Or some people are working on policy. Some people are working on waste management, like the waste workers in the global south. So it's really parang from different walks of life or different walks of our society coming together. And then Break Free from Plastic works with all of that for one like unified goal, which is to have a future free from plastic pollution. So that's it.
I like how you said real solutions. Like, why do you have to like make that distinction that these are real solutions?
Yeah, because for the longest time, we've had different solutions coming out from all sorts of like industry, from different experts, so and so. But with plastic, because it's a material that's forever there once produced, not forever, but like hundreds of years once it's produced, you have to really go to the source, which is production. And from production, it's already polluting. Extraction of oil and gas to produce plastic is already polluting our planet and our environment. So right from there palang, kailangan itigil na, or we have to cap it already. Because when you talk about like just cleaning up beaches, okay, you can clean up as much as you want, but if you keep on producing tons and tons of single-use plastic, it's never gonna end. And there's so much weight put on like on us consumers to do cleanups, to do recycling and all that. But if we keep on producing, or if industry keeps on producing, it's not a real solution.
Yeah.
Like, we're just buying time, which we're running out of really fast.
One of the things that we used to compare plastic pollution with is a bathtub filling up with water, diba? So like if the water overflows, you don't grab a mop, you turn off the faucet.
Yeah, turn off the faucet and then maybe like do other things. But the first talaga step is to turn off the faucet, because if you keep on mopping and it keeps on spilling, is it really a solution to the problem, which is the open faucet?
What other misconceptions have you come across with in your work when it comes to plastic pollution?
The global south, including the Philippines, has always been blamed for like, oh, you're littering. Okay, but where does the plastic come from? From corporations in the global north. So there's this issue also of like, why is the global south always being blamed for it when we have traditions that are actually reused traditions or not plastic based traditions, but it's just the influx of so many products with or packaged in plastic that we can't really keep up anymore.
And you said that we have like existing traditions. Like, of course, so I know some of these, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure some of our listeners will be wondering like what those traditions exactly are.
Yeah, so the bayong, for example, is a reuse example. We go to the market back then with the bayong. We don't wait for them to put it in single-use plastic to when we buy something. We have the bayong. And then also we use banana leaves a lot, for example, so it's zero waste. I've been with indigenous peoples and none of them rely on plastic, for example. And that's majority of our world before plastic. And it was only in Break Free from Plastic actually na I learned that sari-sari stores used to be reuse and refill centers. Like I thought, okay, it's so hard to battle plastic because sari-sari stores, for example, is cultural and we have sachets there. But a study was produced by one member saying or showing that actually before it became sachets, sari-sari stores, you would bring a bottle and then you would refill it. Sometimes you still see it in provinces. In fact, I was in a sari-sari store one time, refill lambanog. So, yeah, so si ate, meron siyang wall of lambanog in giant jars. And then people would bring their own containers and she would refill and then charge by the bottle.
Oh my gosh.
So, it's really, or also, it's natural for us to keep it's cultural also, to keep like cans, especially those metal
ice cream.
Yes, yes.
And then when you open it, it's tilapia.
Yes. So, so mahilig tayo sa reuse. I mean, or the Nescafe used to be like,
right. Like the glass bottles,
yes,
we turn them into our baso.
Yes.
Like we use it for water. Yeah. So it's very inherent sa atin. It's just that I guess these things we forgot about them, or they're just so much like options available now that are in plastic that we think these are more convenient. Really.
Like plastic's been marketed as cheaper and more convenient. It's cheaper because companies don't take into consideration what happens after it's disposed of. That's left to be a problem of governments, of communities. But with refill, kasi before they had to take care of collecting the bottles, they had to take care of all of that. So you would think it's cheaper because you don't take care of the end of use. And the burden falls on communities. And it's cheaper, it seems cheaper because you don't take into consideration the floods or how you pollute communities or how when plastic is burned, it's toxic to people, or how plastic seeps into soil, and all those things. So, is it really cheaper, or are there hidden costs that aren't even considered with plastic?
Arvin wasn't always an environmentalist. In fact, her first job was far from developmental work. But it didn't take long for her to realize that she needed to pivot. Arvin tells us more.
It's kind of like a winding story, not necessarily long. So I graduated with a business major, minor in marketing. So completely like different. But back in college, I was already involved with social enterprises and impact related efforts. And then I really fell in love with marketing and branding because I saw how much influence it has in our lives. Like, you think you're deciding you're deciding for yourselves, but you don't. It's all been influenced by ads, by branding, by marketing. It's so fascinating. And then I realized that you could also, well, not just me, but you realize that marketing can also influence for the good, and branding the same, especially so in a much deeper level. So right after college, I knew that I wanted something with impact, to work on something with impact. But because of of course, influences and the pressure after graduation, I did try a corporate job for 3 months and then I didn't last. parang I couldn't find myself doing it for long term. And it was a really 3 months of struggle for me. Like, I knew it wasn't for me, but because I was like struggling to put that together, like, but I graduated in business and this is the path. And if I resign, is it going to be is it going to damn my entire career and my entire life? And like, will I regret this at the end of my life? You know, I don't know. So it was scary, to be honest. But I had to do it because I really felt like I didn't fit in and it wasn't for me. I wasn't happy. There was no saving grace for me in that job of mine. At least for me, a lot of people thrive and that's for them.
Yeah.
It took a while for me to accept that it's not for me. But I had the feeling. I had the feeling early on. So 3 months and then I resigned. I got a job with Happy Noi, a sari-sari store focused social enterprise. And then there, it wasn't as glamorous. It wasn't as big of an office. It was a house. Our office was a house. But it felt like I could explore more things there. I could learn more things. The marketing team was just me. Yeah, but because it was like that, it fit what I wanted for myself more, which is to keep on exploring and keep on learning. So I did that for a while. And then I had an office mate there, and then we clicked, and then we opened a business. I resigned from Happy Noi. We opened a business that focuses on one of the things that I really wanted to focus on, which is sexual health for women. So under talked about. So for a while that was going on, and it's a successful business, but some internal conflict made it that I needed to leave. And then I was so tired from running the business that I wanted the break. I took a break. I had the privilege of taking a break. You're a business graduate. You're supposed to open a business. And then you had to leave it. It was my brainchild, my baby, and everything. So it was a loss. It was a loss that I needed to mourn. And I didn't know where to go. One thing for sure is that I knew I needed to work on something with impact. So I searched for impact-related things, as vague as that sounds. And then there was this random post on Facebook. I don't know if like it's still where people see like job openings, but it was a random post on Impact Jobs PH looking for digital campaigner for Break Free from Plastic. I didn't know what Break Free from Plastic is, so I googled and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is impact. I'm not starting a business, and so I felt like it was sort of like a rest, and it was a different field which challenged me, but enough that it was still comforting. It wasn't like, oh, you have to start from scratch. It was a job that I think I needed at that time, mental health wise. So yun, I jumped in. At first I was like, but I don't know anything about plastics. I mean, I know like it's bad generally, but it turned out that Break Free from Plastic was looking for someone also not necessarily already in the plastic field, just because it helps give you a different perspective. So there, sorry, yung haba.
All good. And I guess it also helped with your job, diba? Like you're a person coming from the outside, so you kind of know how else to communicate these ideas.
Yeah.
Especially since you were a digital media campaigner, now you're a digital media manager.
Yeah.
What has that experience been like for you?
Like
not being from the inside.
Yeah. So it was overwhelming. And I was thinking, if it was overwhelming for me, who's interested in working in this field, it must be overwhelming for everyone else not in this field. And there's so much misinformation. Like I said, I only learned about the sari-sari store thing when I was on the job. So that helped me sort of get an idea on how to reach more people, or how to reach people who aren't scientists, experts, hardcore advocates, or those even in the environmental sector. So I guess that gave insight also into my work, or how I would plan for the campaigns, for the digital media strategies. It informed how I structured the strategies. Like one of the things that we did back then was yung Bust the Myth series.
Yeah.
So it was just talking about misconceptions that probably for the rest of the team are like, duh, those are misconceptions. But for the rest of the world, or the audience at least, it's like, oh, really? Are those misconceptions? I never knew. So because I felt like I was from the outside, I could relate more to the audiences that you're trying to target rather than actually my teammates. So that helped.
I'm gonna be honest, I was the same. Like whenever we did the bus to miss or like anything educational that they would share, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Right.
Because I was also very clueless. I mean, I came from news, I came from a magazine, so I knew of plastic pollution and the problems, but I was really an outsider then. So like hearing this from you, I'm like very relieved bigla.
I remember, I think we were talking and we were like, I thought you were so into it and like knowledgeable already, but I think it was a conversation we were like, some parts I don't understand.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my god, me too!
I know, like in the middle of meetings, diba, I was chatting like, ano daw?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it was scary at that time, but looking back, it just means that you're in a different field, you're learning.
Yeah. And I think that learning process nga for us, like really helped us do at least like a decent job, I hope.
I think so.
What have been the biggest challenges for the movement so far?
So for the movement, one of the biggest challenges is really we're going against giants, or the things we don't really want to attack giants. We want to work with them towards solutions, like real solutions. But because again, the plastic industry is rooted in oil and petrochem, we're going against billions. Like our campaigns in digital is like a teeny tiny speck in the campaigns of these industry giants. As well as for the corporate brands that we're trying to call out and work with, or even get the attention of. They have billions. We have a team of, back then, just the two of us. Now, like, a whopping 4 people. So yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges. And also, I think there's so many things happening, especially for audiences in the Philippines or in the global south. There's so many things happening. We're also competing in terms of brain space, emotional energy, and attention of people. And I completely understand if environment or plastic is not at the top of your priority in your everyday life. So that's like a fact that we have to work with. And in digital, anyone and everyone can get to you, and we have to compete with all those information getting to our audience.
You mentioned that you have to fight giants, diba?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you fight giants? Knowing that, these people have global marketing teams, you have strategists, they have lobbyists, and break free from plastic, sure, you have 12,000 organizations and individual members, but that's nothing compared to like how many people are employed in big plastic and big oil, for example.
Exactly. Number one is the strength of the movement. Their strength in working with different groups with different expertise. Some again go for policy, some for advocate work or community work. But in the digital field, it's really, I think it's very similar to marketing, wherein you segment your audience.
Mm-hmm.
You segment your audience, and I personally treat it as if I'm selling something, not a product, and I'm not vying for their money or wallet space, but I'm vying for their attention. So we really have to segment because you have limited budget to spend. So if you're talking to a wider audience and you have a limited budget, per head, you're dividing your budget. It's going to be really small per head. So if you're segmenting, you have multiple avenues to target each segment. For example, on Instagram, we used to, like before we went into Break Free from Plastic, like all the launch would, for example, be on Instagram. Everything, webinar, launch, etc., etc., etc. Regardless of how complicated it is. But I think when we were there, we started thinking of the Instagram audience, for example, as a general public audience, Twitter as the experts audience because most of the scientists and news or media personnel are there discussing things. And if it's a policy related campaign that our member is doing, we put it on Twitter and LinkedIn, for example, versus Instagram. Or we put general public friendly version of the news on Instagram. And it just helps spread out and make things easier to communicate because you're not going against everyone. Like, you're not trying to talk to everyone or spending your budget on everyone, but on a specific audience per segment. So it's really like how brands do it also. Like, they segment their market. They have a different ad per market, per sub-target market. And it's the same for me. At least that's how I think of it. So there.
Are there challenges? So we've talked about like challenges for the movement, diba? But how about as a digital media manager? Like, are there challenges specific to your job?
Yeah, because Break Free from Plastic is a global movement. We're presenting information and news from global members from different parts of the world. And we have one channel to do it. So there's the language and translation concern. There's the if you talk about a subject that's very familiar, for example, in Asia, like the word sachets, people in the US cannot understand that as quickly because they call it packets. So those digital, and in the digital field, you have such little time to actually explain everything. So there are those challenges that comes with being a global movement.
Okay, we've done challenges. I'm sure there are big wins for Break Free from Plastic too. And maybe you can share some of these with us.
So I will start with saying that this isn't just a win of the current team, but like we're standing on the shoulders of giants, sabi nga nila. Because with campaign work, it's not like with business. For example, when I was in business or in a company versus like a movement, everything was faster in terms of from introducing your product to having a buy-in from clients. It's faster. With Break Free from Plastic, it's more of a long-haul process. So one of the things is that previously, they named Southeast Asian countries as the top ocean plastic contributor.
Mm-hmm.
In recent years, if you search top plastic polluters, it would be high plastic producing corporations. So that change, for example, is already an example of how our campaigns shifting from consumer to producer responsibility. But it took years. And I think you were with me for a while when we were like, is this really working? Is it like in the grander scheme of things, are we really doing like is there really an impact, or are we really able to reach our goals? But surprisingly, yes. And also, for example, in the Philippines, there are plastic bag bans already. And then there's also like mainstream discussion of plastic. This year, I think World Environment Day, the theme was about plastic pollution. And one of the bigger things is the Plastics Treaty. The Global Plastics Treaty. Basically, UNEP finally said that we do need a legally binding treaty that would solve or at least address plastic pollution. And we're in the middle of negotiations for what the treaty is going to be about, what are the details of the treaty, and all those things. Like, back then, plastic is still everywhere, but like plastic wasn't even a concern. And now there's a treaty, like a global treaty happening that will actually make it a law, to regulate plastic production, which is like amazing. And it took like movements, people from all walks of life to do this. And it's a slow burn, but it's like when you're able to notice these things, or when you look at these things, it's like, oh my God, it's actually happening. Like, something's happening.
It's finally working.
Yeah, slowly but surely.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned like when we were working together, like we both felt kind of lost. Like I remember one conversation that we had was like, are we just doing our work, then patting ourselves on the back, thinking that we did a good job? But like seeing all these things parang unravel, diba, in the horizon, like maybe we did.
Yeah, maybe
we did.
Yeah.
Coming up, tools of the trade. Arvin shares with us what tools she uses to create effective campaigns with the rest of the Break Free from Plastic movement. And she also shares how she deals with the difficulties of being called an environmentalist. I wanted to get into the technical aspects of the job. So, tools of the trade. What tools do you personally use to make your job easier? And hopefully, like, these tools could also be used by people who want to pursue something similar.
So, of course, Canva, our favorite.
Yeah.
So Canva is like a staple for a lot of people working on digital now. But also Google Alerts. So I get a basic roundup of the news coming in with the keywords that I want to follow. And then a thing for me is I like following brands. Even if we do butt heads sometimes with, not sometimes, but a lot of the time we butt heads with brands. It's smart to follow brands because they have the budget to actually do things based on real study, market study, and all those things. And you can get ideas from them. They have really smart tactics. And for us who don't have the budget to research or don't have the budget to test every tactic that we can think of, you can copy in your own form and way or appropriate all those different tactics that they do. And I think it's a practice that we've started back in college because, again, I majored in business and marketing. So that's an interesting thing for me because you're going outside of the usual things that a digital campaigner would probably do in an NGO setting. You're going in a more mainstream field or you're following mainstream brands and learning from them and applying it in your own campaigns.
I mean, if it worked for them,
I know, exactly.
It's probably gonna work for you.
Yeah.
That's a good hack. Like, do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Beat them at their own game.
Exactly, yeah.
How about AI? A lot of people are talking about artificial intelligence lately. So I know it's kind of scary. Sometimes I wonder if I'm gonna have a job in the next few years. But while I'm here, do you actually use AI for your campaigns?
So I saw somewhere that said that AI is not gonna replace your job, but someone who uses AI will replace your job. So I tried to be familiar with it. It's crazy. There's so many conversations about it ethically and in all different aspects of it. But for me, I tried using it. It's easy. So some digital marketers or digital social media managers say that you can use it to create captions, all those things. I guess, but for me, it's more of like when there's a writer block or creative block, because it's not 100% accurate. You could just use it, for me, I just use it to spark ideas or like, because I work from home and we have a small team. Brainstorming's like hard. So you can brainstorm with an AI because it can search the internet for previously published materials. At least you have a starting point. You're not starting with a blank slate. Sometimes that's the hardest thing with strategy, like blank slate. Yeah. Where do you start? I mean, there's the usual, of course, target audience, blah, 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 blah. But what's the next step? Like, what are the ideas, the creative ideas that you can use with all those tools? And I think AI can help with that.
Being an environmentalist is often met with skepticism and like doubt of like whether you can really save the environment or not. And even just that label, like being an environmentalist, like it's such a heavy label. How do you deal with that?
In my everyday life, I'm not like I'm an environmentalist or something. But yeah, I do get what you're saying. We're trying to fight a mess that we ourselves created, and we're even fighting with ourselves to keep ourselves existing.
Yeah.
Like, it's so overwhelming. But I guess I'm reminded of like the small things. The plastic bag ban in the Philippines. The fact that I think Greenpeace Philippines, which is a member I think they're launching refillables in sari stores.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But another thing is to look at like the different aspects of environment, like the ozone layer, for example. When we were kids, I don't know for you, but in school we were taught about this hole in the ozone layer.
Yeah.
The chlorofluorocarbons, or the
Yeah.
CFCs, the chemicals that are damaging our ozone layer. And now UNEP is saying that it's on its road to recovery. It's a long process. We were kids, and then now it's still recovering. And that's the result of what we've done to our planet. But because there was strong campaigns and everyone started hearing about it, everyone was talking about it. It's healing now. It's just a matter of getting the buy-in of a lot of people.
Other people, yeah.
And key stakeholders.
Yeah. Like listening to scientists. Diba?
Yeah. Yes.
That's yeah. Of course, Break Free from Plastic as a group really promotes reusable and, to an extent, having a zero waste lifestyle. Do you yourself practice zero waste lifestyle?
I try. Honestly, I was so scared of meeting my colleagues in Break Free from Plastic because I feel like, oh, maybe they're more hardcore. Oh, maybe they don't have any plastic anything in their bags or anywhere in their life. But I realized they're normal people. We're all in this plastic-ridden world, and we're just trying to eliminate what we can, which is unnecessary single-use plastic. And it's unnecessary for a reason, because we've lived without it. I say I don't have a zero-waste lifestyle, but I try because we have so much product in plastic. Even if you try to avoid plastic, you'll be served it. You'll have to be in a bind, and you have to buy something, and it's in plastic. And that's what we're trying to say, actually, that consumer-wise, you can only do so much, and it's great, whatever you're trying to do. That's great. But it has to be a systemic change for us to actually live sustainable, zero-waste lifestyles. Some people are doing it and are dedicating their lives to it despite all these challenges, and it's great. But for regular or people who have so many things to think about, like even in the Philippines, our countrymen have so much to think about, that really, are you going to fault them for
prioritizing other things?
Yeah. So it's a matter of making zero waste
more accessible,
and more normalized for corporations to give options.
Like I keep saying, we are unwilling participants in a system that has been created for us.
Yeah.
Like something that we don't really have much control over. Right?
Yeah.
Where can people find Break Free from Plastic?
On Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We also have a website with so much information that people can just browse through. So breakfreefromplastic.org. On Instagram, it's Break Free from Plastic. And for those who don't have any idea on plastic, you can just follow the Instagram. We do bust the myths. We do we do informational posts and videos sometimes. And yeah, there.
How about any upcoming projects that people can support?
Yes, so there's a brand audit, which is also available via our website. So you can do a brand audit, which is you're basically going through the plastic waste. For example, if you do a cleanup, if you like doing a cleanup, you can go through the plastic waste and name the brands with the plastic on the plastic waste, so that we have a record of which corporations are releasing plastic or producing plastic and that we have to hold accountable. And then also that we have a lot of petitions for the Global Plastics Treaty, because even if there is a Global Plastics Treaty, we have to be vigilant on what goes into the treaty. And yeah, we can just watch out on Instagram, which we manage, our team.
Thank you so much for the time, Arvin. Thank you. And that was the second episode of Teach Me Senpai. I'm Julian Cirineo. Thank you for watching.